Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Huntington Way Show. I am here with Sam Sorbo, and really, no woman can say that they have taken up arms with Hercules to engage in the most paramount mission of their lives, raising, educating, and discipling their children. Sam Sorbo has done this so passionately, but she also so lovingly, passionately pours into others' lives by working to elevate Christian values, inspire hope, and restore the Judeo-Christian American culture. And she doesn't do this just through her kids. She does this through her podcasts, interviews, speaking, and also movies, acting, several different venues. And so she has made a huge impact on society. And I'm so grateful for her heart in really bringing back kids, bringing back families to the Judeo-Christian values. You're listening on the Huntington Way Show, where we help parents navigate the educational maze. I'm your host, Yvonne Strachan, and I am the founder of inspirationalhomeschooling.com. You're listening on Power Talk 1040 AM, 98.5 FM, and 95.7 FM. Please like and subscribe to Power Talk 1040 on YouTube. Sam and I are going to be talking about movies and other forms of media, how important it is to be present and have conversation with your kids and exercise discernment. Welcome to the show, Sam.
Well, thank you for having me.
So, Sam, tell me your story about how you came to know Jesus and accept him as your personal savior.
Well, it's a bit of a convoluted story. Before I do that, though, I do want to tell you that I started a new TV show, and today, anyway, I'm moving it. So it was weekdays at 7 p.m. It is now weekdays at 4 p.m. on Patriot.tv. So, and it's live, so you can tune in any weekday at 4 p.m. on Patriot.tv, which is in connection with General Michael Flynn. So I'm very excited about that. But how I came to know Jesus is it relates back to education. So I was raised to get a job, go to college, get a career, get a job, right? Make a lot of money. And then maybe think about family, maybe have a kid, maybe get married, maybe any of that stuff. But as our education system tells us, it's all about the money, honey. It's college prep and career readiness. And that means your value, your highest value, is the dollar. And so I went to college and I studied biomedical engineering, and I was working on an ulcer, so I had to take a year off. And during that year off, I started modeling, and I was very successful, and I earned a lot of money. And I went back to college, and college was so much easier than schooling had ever been for me, because the pressure was off because I'd already earned a lot of money. And so my grades didn't dictate if I was going to be able to get a job. Do you see what I'm saying? So the pressure was off. Eventually I stopped and I went back to modeling because I was like, I could do this one thing and only this, go into deep debt, hopefully get a career out of it. Or I could literally do everything else that I'd love to do, learn languages, travel the world, earn a lot of money while I'm doing it, not go into debt. You know what I mean? So I went back to modeling, which then brought me to acting. And I finally said to myself, like 2 years into this, so this is what it's all about. Like, I did what they told me. And money has never really had that much impact on me. I mean, when I was modeling, all my money went into the bank. I never spent it. And I didn't know how much money I had. I'm not the most fiscally, how can I say? It's not irresponsible, but I'm not the most fiscally attentive person. And so I was just looking at this going, okay, so I played by their rules. And now, like, I'm earning a lot of money, but I'm not really happy. Like, I don't have any purpose in my life, and earning money is really not a purpose. It was more of a distraction, frankly, which is what I say our schools are now. They're basically distractions. And so I went on a search, and I found Order in the Universe, and that brought me to church. And I started reading the Bible, and that brought me to Christ. So there you go. A little bit of a convoluted way of getting there.
Yeah. Hey, any way that we get there is absolutely amazing. And then now speaking into other people's lives and hearts and bringing other people to know and love Jesus is probably the most extraordinary mission we could ever be embarking on.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I didn't start homeschooling because of religion much. I mean, my Christianity didn't enter into it at all. It was basically a question of, well, they're not really educating my son, and I'd rather that he get a good education. So I guess I'm going to have to try to do this myself because the experts suck. So that was basically that. But I guess I've always been somebody who I've always been a do-it-yourselfer. I was raised to be a do-it-yourselfer. I remember I helped my mother fix our car when I was a very little girl, and she commended me. And so that just made me feel like, wow, I'm capable. I guess she sort of supported that feeling in me, even though my school taught me how incapable I was, which is what school is very good at doing, is teaching you just how incapable you are.
That's so true. So when you're sitting there, you're raising, you're educating, you're discipling your kids at home. And I can't help but think that had probably a big impact on you and changed your trajectory, your mission in acting, writing, and producing. How did that impact you?
So I remember my acting coach asked me why I wanted to act. And without really thinking about it, I blurted out to change the world.
Mm.
And he was like, well, that's a good reason. And so I guess it changed my trajectory because, look, after I met Kevin, we were getting married, and I was just trying to figure out how to make it work because I lived in LA, he lived in New Zealand, and I was flying back and forth, and nothing's permanent, but still, when you're newlyweds, kind of, how is that going to look? And then he got very, very sick, and he ended up in intensive care. He had 3 strokes in his brain. And all of a sudden I realized that I had a choice to make. And so this is what I tell young ladies, because the school tells you you can have it all. The culture tells you you can have it all, but you can't because there's too much to have. So you're going to have to pick. You can't know it all because there's too much to know. You can't have it all because there's too much. And so you're going to have to choose. Now, how do you choose? Now, the schools tell us, well, you make a pros and cons list. And I'm telling you, that's the exact opposite of what you should do, because pros and cons lists just invite a ton of chaos into your life. What you do is you make a list of your priorities. Number one priority, does it fit that priority or is it against that priority? And if that doesn't decide it, if it's like, well, it doesn't matter. Okay, number two priority, is it for that priority or against that priority? And so I had a binary choice to make. Did I want a family or did I want a career? Couldn't have both. He needed me and I was going to lose. And I just knew intrinsically I wasn't going to be able to get it done working and trying to like care for him and be there for him. And so I threw away my career. And my agent told me, you know what this means, right? Because if you don't take this job, you know what that means. You're throwing away your career. And I'm like, yes, I know. And so then I tried to go back to acting, but it was not successful because we were out of the country, and foreign countries don't like Americans going there and working unless they're bringing a ton of money with them, like my husband's show did, right? So then I had the 3 kids, and then we moved back to LA, and I started acting again. And I came home one day after maybe my 3rd audition. And so that's like a 3-hour thing. You put on makeup, get dressed, leave the house. You're gone for 2.5 or 3 hours. You come back. And my little toddler, who had very few words, my daughter, came up to me with her little finger. And she goes, no, 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 no. And I'm looking at her going, what is this? So I pick her up, I put her on my hip, and she whip turns to the nanny and says, bye-bye. And that's when I knew I was going to have to basically just be there for my children. They wanted me. She did anyway. And I will tell you this because I'm seeing more and more videos about how disastrous preschool is. I took my kids to a preschool, the 2 younger ones, when my son started first grade in this really great school district we moved to. And I dropped them off. And every day that I dropped them off, there was a little girl in there who was very young, maybe 3 years old, bawling her eyes out, just crying uncontrollably. And nobody was looking after her. Nobody was taking care of her. And this happened 5 days in a row. And it horrified me. But I mean, I didn't feel like I had the wherewithal to say, hey, somebody should take, I mean, it was obvious somebody should take care of her, but clearly nobody was. So the end of that first Friday, I had my kids in the car and I said, hey, do you guys want to go back on Monday? And they both said, no, mommy. And I was like, okay, well, there goes our deposit. That was that. And I never took them back there. If there's any way to avoid, well, I'm not even going to say that. I'm just going to say, don't put your children in preschool. Don't put them in kindergarten. They don't need first grade. They need you. They need you to read to them. They need you to talk to them. They need you to play with them. And they need you to leave them alone a little bit. Like typically kids need to be left alone a little bit, so to their own devices. You know what I mean?
Right.
We don't know what we're doing with children anymore because we're so underparented as a culture.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, we're out of time. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, let's talk about media. Let's talk about, as parents, how we can impact our kids as we make these choices and work with them. Welcome back to the Huntington Way Show. You're listening on Power Talk 1040 AM, 98.5 FM, and 95.7 FM. Please like and subscribe to Power Talk 1040 on YouTube. I'm your host, Yvonne Strachan, and I am here speaking with Sam Sorbo. We are going to shift a little bit, and we're going to be talking about media and how it impacts our kids. Welcome back, Sam.
Oh, thank you. Let's talk about it.
Yes. So, what do parents need to know and watch out for when selecting movies and media for their kids?
Well, one thing that they ought to understand is that the movies have an agenda with your children. And they have an agenda with you also. In fact, I just participated in a documentary called Hollywood Takeover, how the Chinese Communist Party has infiltrated Hollywood and is dictating a lot of the storytelling aspect of the Hollywood movies to make China seem less threatening, more desirable, more interesting, more intelligent than the United States. They are softening us. And rest assured, they are softening your kids. And so I would be very careful of any media that I allowed my children to access, especially today with the horrendous things that are happening on social media, the tremendous effects of social media. I will say this, basically, we've been, since 2014, roughly, we've been conducting an uncontrolled experiment on our youth, on our children, with social media. We have absolutely no idea what the repercussions are going to be or could be. We implemented social media. Everybody said, this is awesome. Everybody climbed on board. And now we're going to reap the whirlwind because it is having disastrous effects on young women and young boys, young men. And there are no guardrails in place. And we have no idea how to combat it or deal with the repercussions of it or any of the fallout. So the best way to do that, to sort of avoid being a guinea pig, is to not give your children your cell phone or social media. Don't give them screens. I was just talking to somebody and she was in a business meeting and somebody had brought his 4-year-old daughter and she had her iPad and she was like a complete zombie, just sitting there with the iPad, just looking at the iPad the whole time. And then at some point she looked up and realized that people weren't paying attention to her and she threw a tantrum. I mean, this poor child is swamped by the technology. She's engulfed by it, and it's not good for her. Children should be outside, especially little boys should be outside hitting things with sticks, I like to say.
Yeah. And here it is, with all the algorithms that are going on and all the technology, it's addicting.
Yes.
And it's something these kids cannot counteract. They don't know what they're even dealing with.
Yeah. Now, that said, my husband and I produce movies for families to watch together. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with taking an evening every once in a while, maybe once a week, you have movie night and sitting down as a family and watching a movie and experiencing the movie with your family. So, for instance, Let There Be Light. Let There Be Light deals with death, but not in a way that children can understand. It deals with divorce in a way that children can understand. It deals with Christ. So it's a firm presentation of the gospel. Like, it's a great movie for spawning a discussion with your kids. Maybe not younger than 7. I'm trying to think, because it's like a very real film. And so a 5-year-old might, unless they're precocious, you know. The other film that I highly recommend is Miracle in East Texas. And in fact, for that film, which is a comedy and it's based on an absolutely true story, which is incredible, that movie is so historic that I put together a homeschool curriculum that is intended for parents to get a glimpse of what home education can look like. And it can look like watching a movie and then having a discussion afterwards about, well, what was the Depression? And what do we mean by economics? And what services does oil provide for the economy and for society in general? So why did them striking oil help that whole community? How did that work? And forgiveness. Let's talk about forgiveness. Let's why is forgiveness necessary? Why is it one of the tenets of the Christian faith? Why is it important to us? And so the idea is, you watch a film as a family. This is like a discussion guide. This discussion is educational for your children. It's that simple. And all you have to do is be part of a discussion and follow along. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
so movies can be used for the betterment of the culture. Walt Disney said that movies and television will change our youth, and he was absolutely right. And the change can be negative and the change can be positive. So it's up to you to choose. These days, I'd be very careful what movies I would take my children to, even like, well, maybe mostly Disney. I don't know. I mean, Disney's just
Yeah.
gone off the rails. So I would just be very careful. I would go to the older movies and do movie nights with, the original Snow White or the original, I can't think of the other Disney movies, but the good ones.
Yes. Absolutely. This kind of brings me to this thought, and my husband and I were talking about this, is when TVs were first brought into the home, people considered it an honor to be in your living room. They would dress up and they would watch their speech, and they knew that they had an impact. And you fast forward these many years, and they still know they have an impact. And the thing is, media is used so tremendously to change the culture, to change
Yeah.
uh, our children's way of thinking, our way of thinking. And what I am hearing from you is that the movies that you guys are engaging in, you and Kevin, are all speaking truth and guiding people towards the light, towards God. And what better way to use media? And if we can choose that, I just thank you for having those options for us, really.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think this goes back to, I wanted to be an actress because I wanted to change the world. And of course, my goal is to make the world a better place, not a worse place, not a place that deals with child trafficking, not a place that, abuses children. And movies are powerful. So we're always looking for funding. And if you want any more information, just go to sorbostudios.com, which is where all the movies are, all the books, all the resources that we have. I've just developed a new resource to help families get started homeschooling. It's called the Homeschool Starter Gift Set. And so it's a collection of resources, including some curricula, to get families started. I want to show families that there are options to curricula. Like, we know there's tons of options, but a lot of parents think that curriculum, if they just pick the right curriculum and input data, that their child will be educated. But that's not how it works. And inputting data is schooling. That's what the schools do. And it's not education. Education is the lighting of a fire. It's a software download. And in order to do the software download, software downloads take a lot more time, and you have to monitor. And so the software download is your software getting downloaded into your child. And by software, I'm saying worldview, right? How you perceive the world, the values with which you approach the world. That's what you want your child to have. And another way of doing that is watching good movies and then having the discussion afterwards. Well, why did he do that thing? Why did he call attention to that when he knew that he was going to be arrested or whatever? And you have that conversation. And one of the things that I will say we've done in our culture is we've attacked masculinity to the point of calling it toxic. And therefore, we've removed a sense of purpose from our boys. And boys and men need purpose. And earning money is not an adequate purpose for most of them. Now, some of them are just driven to earn money. I get that. But I mean, I'm a prime example. I wasn't. And so when I figured out that, okay, I did what they told me to do, but that's not going to make me happy. Now what? So we've removed purpose from young men. And I'm wondering now if by doing that, we have created a vacuum and they will become predatory. So we use sheepdogs to guard a flock. And when they obey the master, and the master doesn't tell them exactly how to guard the flock, but tells them, we're going to go this way, bring the flock, make sure that they're coming along, and the sheepdogs do their job. But a sheepdog has a lot more in common with a wolf than it does a sheep. And so if the master is not nearby, or if the sheepdog fails to hear that call, it's very possible that the sheepdog becomes predatory. So I'm wondering,
go ahead.
right? I'm wondering if we're not sort of, in a sense, predisposing our young men to becoming predatory. We tell them to have all the sex that they want. We tell them, go do porn. I mean, porn is so prevalent now. I think kids now age 7 or 8 is the average of them being exposed to porn these days. It's in the school books. It's in the books in school. I know you don't believe me, but it is. Yeah, all you have to do is like Google that and you'll come up with, and it's not just one book, it's many, many books in school. And when you do that and you force a young child to think about things that they shouldn't be thinking about, you're damaging the brain. Pornography works like a drug on the brain. You're addling the brain with a kind of a drug, and it's a very dangerous thing. And I'm just toying with this new concept of maybe we're actually creating predators.
Yeah, now that's a good point. Well, I'm going to leave our listeners on this so they can really chew on that. Thank you so much for joining me, Sam. For our listeners, you can find all of Sam Sorbo's resources at samsorbo.com. This is Yvonne Strachan, today's host on the Huntington Way Show, where we support you in educating your kids. Thank you for joining us.